Greetings, peace be with you. So in this video, we are going to dive into the truth about NoFap and balding. Can the retention of your semen actually cause you to experience hair loss? In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you not only the science, but my personal experience as well. And a lot of men have been asking me on this channel is like, yo, why do you always shave your head? Right now, I haven't shaved it in a while, but I'm going to share with you the real truth about why I do that towards the end of this video. So make sure to stick to the very end in that case, okay? Now, first and foremost, the reason that NoFap and hair loss and balding is such a common topic of discussion is because there's one study that showed when we retain our semen, then we actually experience a close to 150% increase in testosterone levels on day number 7. Okay, now this is one study which has been cited a lot, and this is the only study that I am aware of that actually draws a direct link between semen retention and testosterone. Okay, now this is 7 days, so it's unlikely that this increase will sustain past that point, but nonetheless, speaking from personal experience, I know that ever since I started on this journey, and in case in this video I'm going to be using NoFap and semen retention as interchangeable terms, but they are actually not the same thing in my vocabulary, even though in this video I'm using them as the same. So below this video, I will link out to another video on the difference between NoFap and semen retention, so you can check that out. But for the purpose of discussing male pattern baldness and hair loss, I'm going to be using them interchangeably, okay? So the reason is that high testosterone levels correlate with balding, but that is just a surface level, and we have to dive deeper into seeing what is actually going on under the surface, right? So the first thing to understand is that it's not testosterone that's related to hair growth and hair loss. It is actually a hormone called DHT, which stands for dihydrotestosterone. And this is actually 5 times more potent than testosterone, and it actually stays attached to androgen receptors for like 5 times longer as well. Okay, in case you don't know, androgen receptors are like the lock and testosterone is the key, and only when both of them are working together can testosterone actually begin to exert its impact on the human physiology, psychology, and all the different aspects over there, right? So testosterone actually gets converted to DHT wherever the 5-alpha reductase enzyme is present, okay? Which is basically everywhere except for muscle tissue. So DHT plays a large part in the development of masculinity, whether it has to do with the enlarging of the larynx, whether it has to do with hair growth, whether it has to do with like general growth, right? Like DHT, like I said, is exerting the effects everywhere that testosterone is not, and the only place that testosterone is in the muscle tissue, and testosterone is actually a precursor to DHT. Okay, now when it comes to hair loss, the hormone that we must talk about is DHT. Okay, because some studies have shown that men that experience male pattern baldness actually have higher levels of DHT. Okay, and for this reason, DHT is often accused as the root cause of hair loss. And for this reason, a lot of the supplements like finasteride and all of this are actually 5-alpha reductase inhibitors, which mean they block the conversion of testosterone into DHT. Okay, so again, the reason that NoFap and semen retention come into this is because they have been thought of as raising your testosterone levels, and that ends up causing more DHT to be more testosterone to be converted into DHT as well. Okay, so as the current theory is that, okay, DHT, higher DHT equals more male pattern baldness, but the fact is that as older men, they produce less amounts of testosterone, which means less amounts of DHT. So why is it that men that are producing less amounts of DHT and testosterone as they grow older actually increase hair loss, right? So androgen hormones go down with age, but hair loss actually goes up with age, right? So on one aspect, we have hair loss being correlated with higher DHT, but on the other aspect, we have hair loss being correlated with higher age, and higher age being correlated with lower testosterone. So there's something deeper going on, which you're going to discover right now. Okay. So it's important to establish the difference between serum DHT and tissue DHT. Okay, so serum DHT is the amount of that hormone that is running through your blood, through your veins, right? And research has actually found, and if you want to look deeper into the research studies, I will link out to a blog post below, which I wrote a while back, which is really the definitive guide to DHT. So if you want to dive deeper into the studies, then you can check that out. I'm just summarizing the main findings from that blog post, okay? So studies have found that serum DHT actually has no correlation with baldness and hair loss. Okay, so the amount of DHT that you have in your blood is not correlated with hair loss. In fact, researchers found that higher amounts of DHT in the blood actually correlate with less amounts of hair loss. So this is why it's important to dive underneath the surface, because then if we go and take this stuff like finasteride and other medical ingredients that have been thought of to block the production of DHT, then what actually ends up happening is that we block the impact that DHT has on our body to exert those masculine side effects, right? DHT is literally the driver of your development of male characteristics, like a deep voice, like we'll be talking about further as well, hair growth to some extent as well. Okay, so tissue DHT, on the other hand, which is basically correlated with the amount of androgen receptors that you have on a particular tissue, does correlate with male pattern baldness. Now, this is again a very interesting topic, and it seems like a paradox, because the higher tissue DHT you have in your scalp, which means the more androgen receptors that you have, which means that the more DHT will attach to them, the more hair loss you will experience on your scalp. Okay, that has been established. But the higher amounts of tissue DHT that you have on your face and your body, that actually leads to higher amounts of hair growth. Now, that is a conundrum over there because when we increase DHT and we have high amounts of androgen receptors on our head, then we cause hair loss. And when we have it on our face and our body, we cause hair growth. So why is that the case? That is something which at this point of my research is not entirely clear, but that is the case. And that is why, for example, someone can have very high amounts of testosterone, which lead to high amounts of DHT. But if they don't have androgen receptors on their face, like is the case with a lot of men from the origin, right? Orient, like China and Japan and all of these Far Eastern traditions, not traditions, cultures, people, the genetics over there, they have difficulty growing facial hair because even though they might have high amounts of testosterone and DHT, they do not have the androgen receptors on their face, which end up causing that growth, okay? So over here, it's like you might be more confused than watching this video, but I'll tell you about my experience around this stuff, okay? Because if you can see, I have like a bit of a widow's peak going on, and I remember at one point, I used to have very long hair, like compared to right now at least, and I was paranoid when I saw that I was having this kind of hairline going on. And this is because my sense of identity to some extent was attached to the hair on my head, right? Maybe you can relate to this, like losing your hair and feeling like you won't be attractive, feeling like you won't be enough, feeling like you won't be yourself without your hair. Because I experienced that and it caused a lot of stress and anxiety for me, right? And that was the point where I was like, okay, man, like attachment, right? Getting attached to the hair on my head. What can I do about this? How can I deal with this? Because after doing the research, I realized that going down the path of these pills might end up doing more damage than good, because even if they reduce the conversion of testosterone into DHT and they increase my hair growth, they might actually decrease all the other aspects of my masculinity, which would end up even doing more damage over there. So that is definitely a path that I did not choose to go down. And that was the point where I realized that, okay, if I truly want to get over my attachment to my hair on my head, then I must shave my head, right? And it took a long time with that, with me wrestling with that thought. Should I shave my head? Should I trim my hair? Should I not do it? Should I do it? Should I not do it? For a long time, I was wrestling with that. And then one day, out of just some divine inspiration, I suppose, I just shaved all of that off. And I realized that it's not so bad. that I still have value, that my value is not determined by the hair on my head, that my value is determined by me keeping my commitments to myself and providing value to the lives that I touch, and creating and learning and growing are the areas through which I actually create value in my life and create value in myself and respect in myself and self-worth as well. And really, that decision to shave the hair on my head was a great one because I was able to let go of my attachment to the hair on my head. Now, if you're watching this and you're experiencing hair loss, then, I can't relate to your situation because your situation is uniquely your own. I can just share my experience, and that's what I just did. But if your sense of worth is attached to your hair, then that is likely that's not the only area where you're attaching your sense of worth, right? Anytime we attach our sense of self-worth to something outside of us that is outside of our control, i.e. hair loss, then our sense of self-worth is standing on a very weak foundation. So important to consider where we get our self-esteem from, where we get our self-worth from, because the more we get our sense of self-worth from things that are within our control, which is our own behaviors and the attitude which we create for the experiences in our life, the more that we are in charge of how we feel about ourselves, right? And that really is the most important thing, how we feel about ourselves when we are by ourselves. And that is the definition of fulfillment, right? So just some scientific studies I wanted to share with you over there. Like I said, the blog post is linked out below. You can check that out for more details. But it's definitely a complicated topic, and even the research is not entirely clear on this. So choose whatever path that you want. Just make sure to do some research. Even if you do decide to go down the path of taking pills or whatever it is, make sure to read about the side effects, because if you are suppressing the DHT in your system, you're also suppressing its ability to create the masculine impact that it has on your voice, on your face. There's also the jawline. There's so many, like every aspect of your masculinity is determined by your testosterone and your DHT. And if you're taking these pills that suppress these hormones, that can end up doing more damage than benefit. So make sure you do your own research around this stuff. I just wanted to share with you what I have found in this area. Okay, so leave a comment below letting me know your experience with hair loss, your experience with NoFap and its correlation with hair loss. I've noticed that ever since I started on this journey, my beard has definitely gotten thicker. My voice is deeper than it was before. And I don't know if that's purely related to NoFap or is that's just me getting more grounded in myself as well, right? Because if I put more awareness on this and I breathe deep into my diaphragm, I can actually resonate my voice that much more strong as well if I have that awareness, as you can probably notice, right? But let me know your experience with NoFap and hair loss and masculinity as well. I love hearing from you. I love connecting with you. And with that, we can conclude today's video, and I will leave you in the peace and power of the one infinite creator. Like the video if you like it, subscribe if you have not already. But I will catch you in the next one. Okay, much love to you. Take care.